gets it.
I said, put the bunny back in the box. Why couldn't you put the bunny back in the box?
It's showtime.
Our brethren are already in the field. Why stand we here idle? What is it the gentlemen wish? What would they have? Is life so dear, or peace so sweet? Has to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what course others. As for me, give me liberty, or give me death.
Psychically, I'm very well endowed.
I want to know what you're thinking. There are some things you can't hide. I want to know what you're feeling. Tell me what's on your mind.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to an Independence Day show of What's Next. What's next? We're doing our series of unsung creators, and today, are you ready to get thunderstruck? Because Raiden is here. So welcome to the show, Mr. Raiden Radio.
Hello, hello. How you doing?
Hey, doing all right.
Happy
doing
4th.
All right. Happy 4th to you, man. Hey, it's a good day to have a comic that's semi kind of patriotic, you know. I'm definitely enjoying this, having my one day of the year that I can really like cut loose on that. Anyway, got the shirt and everything. There you go.
Awesome.
Anyway, so this show's all about unsung creators that are in our area of, you know, this kind of like this little circle we're in, kind of, you know. And so basically I'm having on people who's writing kind of like challenges me, and you're one of the people who I read after that. I go, well, crap, I gotta raise my game, man. and so I appreciate you coming on the show. I know you've got your Eudamonia 3 that's currently being signed up. There's a link in the chat pinned. So I suggest everybody go and sign up for that. But we're going to talk about the first one, which I have a PDF of. We're also going to talk about one of your later efforts, Noirlem, and basically talk about your philosophies when it comes to writing, maybe some observations about the current state of comic writing, and why it seems like some people are like in a race to the bottom of having, seem like a race to who can put out the most incompetent writing, comic possible. And you got people like us who are like freaking out about the writing and, dot every I, cross every T, and obsess about closing up every plot hole. And at the same time, we've got this shot that we're taking, putting out a comic that is the marriage of art and literature. And it's like, why not take your best shot when it comes to that? And you are somebody who takes your shots. And so as an inspiration to me and as an inspiration to people that are going to watch this show today, we're going to evaluate work that you've put out there. The first one I'd like to evaluate is something called Eudamonia. What is the term? What does that mean? Most people don't know what that means.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty talented at making titles that people struggle with, but
there you go.
Eudaimonia is a word from Greek philosophy, Aristotelian, if you will.
There you go.
And it basically means the good life. So your eudaimonia is that in life which makes all of the trials and the struggles and the pain and the heartache still worth it in the end. So it's something that everybody is searching for, even if they don't put a lot of thought into it. And it can come in a lot of different ways. It can be family, it can be religion, it can be, sadly enough, for some people, the end of a bottle. But it's something that we're all by nature looking for.
Yeah, it's the pursuit of happiness, I guess you would say.
Sure.
Well, so let me bring us up. Now, look at this. It's just, I mean, you've got some of the best cover art of anybody. You just, especially this Eudamonia series. And the reason what I'm so deeply impressed by is, I mean, this right here, this never really happened in this didn't happen in the book. But this represents so much about the book in just one cover image. So how did you come up with that cover image? What was your thoughts?
I mean, it goes back to, it really is the core of the book. I had studied a lot of World War I literature. I became kind of fascinated by it. And being somebody who also loves music, it was kind of a marriage of those three things. It was, what the soldiers who fought in World War I endured, which is something that has never happened in history and probably never will ever again.
No.
Because there's really only one time in history where you can introduce, Napoleonic marching and automatic gunfire before we realize how those two, what a tragedy that creates.
Well, a story that I heard was the beginning of the war, Rickenbacker, not Rickenbacker, but the Red Baron, von Richthofen. Okay. Sorry, I got my Ricks mixed up. But he started out as a cavalry officer, and then they realized what a cluster, F that is.
Yeah.
We got machine gun nests. Maybe charging across the open field and on horseback is not a good idea.
Yeah. I mean, technically, there was a small war between Russia and Japan right before this.
The Sino-Prussian War.
Yeah, but the word hadn't gotten out yet as to just how horrific that it would be, especially on such a large scale.
Right.
And so, it was really a blend of that and, in studying what the soldiers who actually fought in the war, what they were writing, they were kind of expressing themselves in these awful, conditions by writing poems. And
but there was more downtime in this war than there ever had been in another war.
Yeah, it actually became a joke in. It was like a running joke. I don't remember the name of the TV show, but it was a British comedy. And one of the running jokes on the show was that the soldiers were always writing poetry. Right. But because a lot of them emerged from blue collar, I mean, this was a time. This is when modernity was in full swing. So free verse poetry was around, but a lot of these kids, they came from very blue collar backgrounds. So all they knew were sonnets, basically. They grew up reading like Shakespeare and Donne and all them. So when they went to write, they were writing in sonnets. And so the kind of natural musicality of a sonnet with the iambic pentameter just made a really nice vessel through which to tell this story of music kind of changing a soldier's life. And then
everything is basically written in sonnet form.
Yes.
That's brilliant. I didn't realize that. I knew it was musical, but I didn't realize it was sonnet form. That's incredible.
Yeah, and it's also kind of cool because pentameter, if something is iambic, the emphasis goes on every other syllable. So an iambic pentameter is 10 syllables, so it would be da 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 da, which is very much like a march. You know what I mean? Like da 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 da.
Yeah. And funny thing about it is how far we've fallen off as humanity. Shakespeare used to be considered low art.
Yeah.
So I mean, Shakespearean plays that are now like so revered and considered so highbrow were just like base. It was they were like disposable back then.
Well, I can't say that I invented. I can't say I invented the sonnet story because Shakespeare actually had his series of sonnets, which told a single narrative, and then Sir Philip Sidney had Astrophil and Stella, like about 500 years ago. So I didn't invent it.
Oh, right. But you definitely moved it forward somewhat. What we're about to explore here. Let me get caught up here. Woodrow, early hell. And he lives in Arizona, so he's pretty toasty at the moment. Don't ask me why people settle here with zero water. Yeah, it could have been worse. It could have been born in Cali. Yeah, that's true. Or Oregon or Washington. You gotta say that cover is amazing. Yeah, agreed. Which proves once and for all, artists reign supreme. You are going to get kicked. You keep that shit up, you're going to get kicked. All right. Anyway, that cover is beyond good. Shadowpunk and I have a kind of like a running joke going on. But yeah, let me crack his cover a little bit. That is very, that's a good way. This 3 page. You go black on one and white on the other, but then this is the first page, and the composition of this page. I mean, how much did you write down how you wanted things to, how you wanted things to be composed, or was this all the artists kind of like coming up with? Because there's a artistry to just how things are composed.
Yeah, I mean, I can't give him all the credit. A lot of the design and composition, I did have a hand in. Okay. And yeah, I got to be honest here. I kind of wear my influences on my sleeve. So, you can see right there that the quote is from Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. And then the design I had in my head, No Country for Old Men, the poster that has Anton Chigurh looming over the horizon.
I missed that. I did not. I missed that totally. I know that poster.
Yeah.
Let me see. Yeah. Yo, Bunny. Hey, Wookie Fever. Welcome in. Hey, Dave. Dave's also a guy that genius at composition. So basically, if what really impresses me, I didn't realize it was all in iambic pentameter, but just the way that your narrative moves, I didn't quite get it at first. It's like I was telling you a little while ago. I was trying to think of it in terms of sequential art, da 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 da, right? And so the first time I went through it, if you try to think of it as sequential, then you're not quite understanding the tune that's being played here. And so once I finally got it through my thick skull that what is this, basically sheet music. What you're writing here is basically sheet music. And then, I mean, I don't, the writing is just beautiful, but, just looking at the images, there's a narrative happening here. And the characterizations that are just in the images, like this guy here, who, looks a little bit like, Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt. But, you could just tell that this is a guy who's like a self-appointed leader, and just from like, just his actions. But what I really, once you understand what you're doing here is more like sheet music than it is, like a narrative chain, then you start like just listening to the different tunes playing, and you start listening to like different, because you got multiple like times represented here,
Yeah, the first chapter chronologically is the last chapter.
Right, exactly. And basically you're playing like the finale, but then you're going back and you're like figuring out or hearing the tune, that leads up to it. Shadowpunk says, Raiden, if you want, send me artwork. I'll repost this often with the help of a rollout. Yeah, he's big on helping do that. Yeah. Well, so we get to like the mystery gets established, and then you get the players. This guy kind of set this into motion, and you're like, who is that guy? Why is he in town? Why is he like making us doubt this other fellow? And then that doubt, he planted the seed, and then it's growing, and these gentlemen are like comparing notes, and because they're comparing notes, you're like learning about the history of this community and how this guy fits in. And then it's just like, it goes from there. And then there's this mystery of the door where there shouldn't be a door, why is there a door in the middle of the freaking field, and then basically that keeps playing on them until they turn it into something sinister, which is how things really happen. How a rumor gets started, and then it like takes on a life of its own. And then you start like comparing notes, and they're like, hey, wait a second, this girl went missing. That then they all stir to action. They get the mob mentality, and they're like, oh, we're gonna save this little girl who may or may not, who has disappeared. With basically, so they go on like this mission, and then this is them getting their Dutch courage up, drinking enough alcohol, and and then they go, but the way this is composed right here, this page here, where they're having this conversation that's a long view, but then you have like these many, like vignettes of what they're talking about, and then you have them at the bottom. The party is like, it's just getting started. They're the missile has been fired. They're heading to the target, right? And then they get there, and they discover more than they bargained for when they open the door, and this music comes flooding out. And the way you're representing the music, it's just, where did you come up with that idea of having it be evocative like that?
I think it was just I think I wanted in my head it was like, it's like the actual thing, like what it is the music.
Yeah.
It would be as foreign to them
right
as a monster. It would be as foreign to them as their wildest imaginations anyway.
Yeah.
And coupled with, the idea of a mob mentality,
right,
where reality almost doesn't matter. They're looking for something in particular, and if it isn't there, their mind will kind of fill that in anyway. Right. So that's why this is how the music is represented. It's all the things that they had hoped to find in their liquor fueled, frenzy.
right. Well, and this image here is just, I mean, all the splash pages that usually splash pages are just full of action, but this is like, just like the mystery is like grows.
Yeah.
Because they go down here and they expect all sorts of nefarious things, and it's just a guy down there playing a cello, in the middle of a field, and we get to fill in this Midwest, somewhere in the Midwest, and it's just like the kind of like thinking that it takes to move a story along, especially when it's non-linear like this.
Mm-hmm.
And so you had to have like that image had to be like in your head from the start. You knew where you were headed to come up with this image,
Right.
And this image,
the body of a cello being very similar to the body of about roughly the size of a small child. You have a neck, you have a body.
Yeah. And then boom, what happens is you have another bleak page here that's kind of like, okay, we're doing something new, we're resetting, and then boom, we're back in the war, the Great War, World War II, and you use the usage of like abstract. It's weird because you're abstract in the art, but you're very specific in your coloring.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a choice that you made?
Yeah, I mean, you could basically say that primary colors are reality and secondary colors are kind of fantasy.
Right. Yeah. This is the best representation of trench warfare that I've seen. It's just it's like like in the middle of a field, there's a cat, like it's I guess canyon, and that's where they are, Trench warfare was just one of the worst things that humanity's ever done to itself. And but you go from like that fantasy to back to the bleak coloring. It's like this is the transition from into the fantasy or the memory, and then here's the reality. You've landed in the memory, so now you're here. And suddenly you got the picture or the story of this young man who is forced to do something that no young person should ever do or ever have to do to survive. And the fact that he takes another child, the same that's in over his head too, takes his life because that one, either that or he would take his life, and so he's forced to do this. And it's like two kids basically playing adult and having to do the most adult thing that you have to do, especially in war. And it's just that image right there. That's like the heart of everything. This incident right here is the heart of everything. Looks like World War II won. You're right. Good eye. Good eye.
Yeah, a little bit of history bending here. There wasn't a ton of child-on-child warfare.
Right.
And when it did happen, it was mostly between French and German soldiers. So an American boy at 15 is a little bit of a stretch from history. Yeah.
Yeah, but it works for the story. And it doesn't break canon. It doesn't break history or bend history to the point of being incredulous. You know, it doesn't take you out of it. Even if you're even if you know the history, this is not going to take you out of it. You know, it's entirely possible. The scenario is not like beyond the realm of possibility. But, the fact that you understood that, you understood what the truth was, but you understood you had to twist it a little bit for the story to work, but you knew what you were doing. We run across this today, and it's like they don't know why they shouldn't do things. They just do them anyway, because they don't care about the source material, but you care. And it shows. It shows in the research that went into this is just spectacular. And then he's forced to make his way across no man's land all alone after, being stuck in there looking at this child who he's had to murder, same age as him. And it's just like he goes back and they're like celebrating him. They're like, celebrate. You made it back, And in a way, he never made it back. And the kid that left that, and returned, it's not the same kid, and here he is, he's drinking his first beer, and it's like an afterthought, because he's in every way, psychologically, in every way, he's already an adult now. That childhood died with the boy he killed. And does that sound accurate as to what your thinking was?
Yeah. I mean, sorry. Whenever we go back to this, I'm like, wow, I really made something horribly depressing. and I'm thinking ahead to book number 2, where I somehow managed to take all of this and make it worse.
Yeah, I know. I didn't get book 2, and I need to. I'm going to do a catch up here. Well, seriously, that's wonderful artwork. Yeah.
Book 2 tells it has a chapter dedicated to the boy's story.
Oh,
the boy that he killed, his story.
Oh, wow. Yeah. This is just utterly beautiful. This splash right here. What that music meant to him. That's the image that if you don't get any more images today, this is the image. But the words are just as beautiful. But that right there, I mean, to a child that just lost his childhood, and to have that restored to him in that moment, or at least reminded of it, it's just it's no wonder he spent the rest of his life trying to find that tune, trying to find that music, But what you said about the primary colors being, to denote fantasy elements. That makes that really checks out. Once you said that, and I'm starting to understand. And this is really great montage here. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Up, the opening montage to Up,
Yeah.
Were you inspired by that at all?
No. This area here was inspired by actually a lot of the story was inspired by a hardcore punk band called Defeater.
Oh, okay.
And their albums are essentially telling the same exact story about a family in post-World War II America, but each album is from a different character's perspective.
Oh, wow.
And one of their album covers for their album called Letters Home, about the dad serving in World War II, it looked a lot like that, with old photographs strewn across a table.
Oh, wow. Well, that's really powerful. The splash at the top of this page is really incredible, because everything that's written there has a purpose. And I sit there and I like read through everything, and that's what kind of, I mean, that's the thing I'm talking about. You sat there and determined what all this stuff was going to be, knowing that people probably wasn't going to read it, but you wanted it there. Why is that? Why did you want that there?
I think because, when I write characters, I really try to think about what it would be like to do what they're doing.
Right.
And if I were to, in the context of the page, he's starting to get a little bit older, and he realizes that he doesn't know a lot about living.
Right.
And so I was thinking to myself, well, if I wanted to know that, what would I want to read? And so I basically took, you have Plato's Republic in there, you have Home to Harlem. I mean, it's a lot of my favorite books. And then I mentioned before Astrophil and Stella. That's another sonnet series telling a story. So it's kind of a self-referential nod.
Right.
Beowulf was actually written in verse because people used to have to sing stories.
Yeah. Bards. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it was just kind of a collage of like, if I was going to the library, what would I reach for to kind of understand the world?
Well, the point I'm wanting to make here is that there are people out here that are thinking about every single aspect, and they're working through it. And Shadowpunk is a good example of this. Shadowpunk did a frame in his book that it's a splash, but basically it's like up here where the action's supposed to be happening, right? But he did the angle, did it on like a slant, and down here there's a rat crawling around. But the rat, you would think the rat looks like it's the focus of it, but she's way up here. But the fact he put this down here, that was so important to put that in there, because it's world building. It's just simply world building. But when you see people that spend that much time thinking through every single page, and it's like, this is what the art form should be. To me, this is what it should be. It's just, if you're going to create something, take your damn shot. Don't do it half-assed. The washed out part at the bottom there, going with the purple, and it's an overcast day, then in using negative, using the white as the rain streaks, that's
probably my favorite panel from any of them.
It is gorgeous. It is gorgeous. I just sat there and just stared at it today, because that's like something I could put on my wall. And it's just really, it's beautiful art right there. There's another one later that's kind of better to me, or the one that I would, but here you go. We meet the guy from the beginning. It's like, this is how they cross paths, and that perspective right there in that middle panel, that's like slightly overhead, but there's a bubble effect there, to where it's like a refractive effect, like it's on a mirror, like a mirrored ball, that's that you put on the corner. Was that deliberate? Did you ask for that, or did he just do it?
He just did it, man. I have nothing but respect for him. He said so many of the pages like this that I was just kind of floored when I got to look at him. I was like, how did you do that?
Right. I was wondering that. I'm like, did he like do? Because you could tell that the perspective is a little bit warped, but it makes sense for what's happening in the panel. It's a little bit warped,
Yeah.
And it's storytelling. It's just like pure storytelling. And it's I mean, this is really just right there, man. And he's learning to play the tune, trying to recover the tune. I mean, it's just gorgeous. I mean, it really is. Fisheye lens, exactly. That's what I was trying to get at. But here he is. He's trying to learn, and he can't quite get there. And you can see like the stars and stripes right there. And he's just like going through basic tunes, and look at this. That just floored me. That one just floored me right there. That is a splash page. And all those guys are like there to beat him to death, and they're hearing this music. The birds right there at the bottom, and then they swirl around. It's like a summer's day, and there's his house. So this is obviously him and his wife in their younger days, and he's playing a memory basically. But that's just art right there. I mean, that's art. And then when you read the soliloquy at the bottom, this is what comic books should be. It really is. But let me get to the panel. That's also one there. But the panel that right there.
Oh yeah,
that page. That did something to me. It really did. But the story of the Harlem Hellfighter, it's really awesome. And that you just this whole book is a work of art. It really is. And here's the images, like production images you put in the back. But that you got that image. I think that's the cover for the second one, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah, the Harlem Hellfighter is actually two separate poems that I had written.
Yeah.
The first one is just a narrative poem called The Harlem Hellfighter.
Right.
And then the last two pages are just a poem. I think it was just called Snowfall on the Street Lamps. And it's really just a poem about how I think that there is nothing in the world more beautiful than watching snow fall through the light of through a street light.
Well, I couldn't tell that there were two separate works. They just blended together so well.
Yeah. Just kind of my Robert Frost moment.
There you go. Well, people who know are familiar with this show know how rare this is, but I'm going to have to give you 6 carats. 6 carats. I reserve 6 carats for the things that like get me, that evoke something out of me. If you don't evoke anything from me, you can't get to 6 carats. But
well, thank you.
But another thing I wanted to. This is your more commercial work right here. Eudamonia is just absolute art, but it's maybe not accessible to everybody. As you know,
Well, go to the link in the description. It's free to read. It's free for everybody.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it took me a little while to get it, but once I got it, it's like my estimation of it just went through the roof. But it's gorgeous. It's always been gorgeous. But once I understood what I was like looking at narratively, and the whole Sonic thing makes a whole lot more sense than I thought. And so, but it's absolutely, there's a link in the description. You can read it. for free. So if you want to read it or you want to, gush over the art, but I would highly suggest reading it too, because it's got some beautiful turns of phrase, especially the Harlem Hellfighter. Some of the writing in that, the turns of phrase are just absolutely gorgeous, especially the streetlight part. So that makes perfect sense that it's a separate piece. But this right here, now to say that it's more commercial is not an insult by any stretch of imagination.
Sure.
But this right here, are you still putting out books through this group?
Yes, but it has been simmering for a while now.
Okay.
I haven't really been posting a lot of updates online about it, but
right.
Yes. In fact, it's coming up to being finished sooner than a lot of people realize. A lot of it is done. A lot of it is written. It's been a lot of fun to kind of stretch the character legs a little bit rather than having to focus on introducing them. And got a pretty banger of a mystery.
Right. You did give me more some production art, but I kind of gushed over Eudamonia. I kind of pushed the time a little bit. So
sure.
But basically this right here, this was your this is obviously a start of a series. Hold on one second. JP's writing is real pretty. Yeah, it is. It's very pretty. But this right here is kind of a Sherlock Holmesian style mystery, where you have the Guy Friday or the Watson, and you have the detective who's just like got perceptions and puts connections together beyond.
But is also a jerk.
Who's also a jerk, yeah. But what was interesting about this was you set this in the golden age of Harlem, which just does not get covered in literature enough. This one period of time from this group of people in America went from slavery to millionaires, and in just like less than 2 generations. And it's and they changed culture, they changed sports, they changed everything, and a lot of what we've got today is because of this one period of time, to where this race basically found its footing in America, in the freedom of America, in a way that they haven't done anywhere else on the that race has never really like achieved what they achieved that short amount of time. And but when you that particular group, I mean, and this was under Jim Crow laws, and casual racism that was just prevalent at that time, but in a way they thrived because of it, as opposed to because they had these barriers, because they had like these limits on them. They just found ways around, and they just achieved, and they just really did some amazing things. And to set it in that time period where jazz was taking off, blues was the first blues chords were being written, basketball was becoming a thing, baseball, they had the best baseball players in the world, just not many people knew it, and until Jackie Robinson showed up. But this time period is just to set it there was really fascinating, because that time it was before racial unrest, essentially, and they just like accepted that this is the way the world was. But then they just got about their business. None of them were like victims, none of them saw themselves as victims, and because of that, the achievements that they had were just singular, and maybe human history. The
thing I find really fascinating about that period and that era is that everybody knows about the music,
right?
and next to nobody knows about the literature. Like the
Right.
literature coming out, and I'm talking about all forms, short story, novels, poetry coming out of Harlem at the time. It's unbelievable. I mean, you have, and like it spans so many genres, like
Right.
Science fiction.
Yeah.
You know, well before. I mean, not saying well before period, but like Afrofuturism comes out of there.
Yeah.
And it seems so bizarre to me that once I started reading it, how I can't understand why everybody focuses so much on the music, and I don't understand how people are that unaware of the literature at the time.
It's almost like it's being suppressed or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, the victim narrative has suppressed a lot of the achievements that they had, because everybody wants to focus on the fact that there's this racism that was happening at the time, but it was like casual racism. It wasn't like, everybody focuses on the Emmett Tills, but the thing about it is the segregation worked for them in a lot of ways. And as anathema as that sounds, they were adjusting, they were achieving, they were doing incredible things, and their society was because it was like church based and it was family based. It was even more healthy. It was healthier in a lot of ways, because the family units were just so strong, and it was just like that particular time. Just you don't get enough literature based on that. If they do, it's all about the racial narrative, and the racial narrative was like just a minor. It was like a background hum to what was actually happening. Langston Hughes was incredible poet that was went through that, and yeah, everybody talks about the music and everything like that, but baseball, the things they were doing in Negro leagues. I mean, Satchel Paige was so unhittable that they would literally set up card tables in the infield when he was pitching, and just sit there and play cards because nobody was going to hit him. And by the time he made it to the major leagues, I think he was in his 40s, and he won Rookie of the Year. He's still the oldest Rookie of the Year winner. He was and he'd fallen off a lot by the time he got to the major leagues, and yet nobody could hit him. But Josh Gibson was considered the better than Babe Ruth. A lot of people said he had a sweeter swing than Babe Ruth did. But because it was the Negro leagues, not many people knew about it, but their level of play was way better than the major leagues. And people that knew, I would rather go there than they would go to, Kaminsky Park, But
by the way, I don't know if you've dabbled in historical writing at all, but it is so much fun.
Yeah.
Like just the research side of it,
right,
and finding like really obscure anecdotes or just things from the era, whatever like your favorite era is. I find that to be so much fun. So like in book 2, I was learning about what diners were like on Wall Street. Yeah. And about how they basically operated on the honor system, where you could go in there and you could get a turkey dinner, right? And you could tell the cashier that you just had a ham sandwich, and they would just, yeah, sure, whatever. But it was like an honor system where if you got caught, that's the only place to get a bite to eat around Wall Street. So you don't want to do that. So everybody was just honest. Right. That would never happen today.
Well, I mean, and at the same time, they would say, I'm short right now. I'll get you next time. And they're like, okay. And they just write it down, and they knew because next time they came through, they would pay it. And thievery was like almost non-existent.
Yeah.
Because everybody was carrying, and everybody, and not only that, but the neighborhood like policed itself.
Yeah.
And basically, if you like did something to somebody, they would the whole group of them would show up and beat the crap out of you, and they policed themselves. They took care of their own business, and and it just made for a really strong community. Okay, hold on. Family and community, right? And the fact that I'm saying that right now would get me canceled. Why in the world? You know? I mean, it's insane that we don't like give them the credit that they're due. They did not need our help. They never have needed our help. Eventually, all this stuff would have come without the civil rights stuff. It would have come naturally, because they were building an ecosystem that was rivaling anything that was set up in the quote unquote white world or whatever, and eventually their money would have been their money would have been spent just like any white dollar would have. It would have solved itself, and it's like and you see where they're at now, and it's like, I have so many black friends that are perfectly capable of doing anything that anybody else does, and do not need a hand up from anybody. They don't need your help. And to have a detective that is it's a black man, at this time period was just like such a brilliant idea, because why not? And the fact that he understood that, okay, I'm not going to get credit for this bust. You will, but go ahead and take it. I don't care. All I cared about was solving the crime.
Right.
And it's like that's where I get my I don't need anybody to give me promotion. I don't need anybody to give me a pat on the back. I'm satisfied because I had this puzzle placed before me and I solved it. And
well, the other side is the anguish for Detective Baldwin,
right,
knowing that
I didn't do this.
Justice is unjust.
Right. But he couldn't have solved it, and Carmichael could have.
Yeah,
Carmichael could, and so that's like it's like, does this go unsolved, or do I use this resource? And take the credits going to fall to me, and I'm sure that's going to come into conflict in the second book, because inevitably it's going to have to where Carmichael's totally okay with giving up the credit, but he's going to start resenting Carmichael for the fact that Carmichael can solve his stuff and he can't solve it on his own. And so I imagine that's going to be a conflict in the second book. I can kind of see that coming, but the fact that I understand the interpersonal dynamics enough, you've written them so well that I can see that conflict on the horizon. That means you've dotted every I and crossed every T, and that's really what I want to promote. Is I want to promote people who really, are intentional about everything.
Yeah.
Nothing's left to chance. You work through it. There's no plot holes. There's, even secondary characters have a life. You build a Harlem where there's like understood things in the community.
Yeah.
There's like a little there's a death at the beginning of it, and he solved it because he knew how that guy's habits.
Yeah.
And that's how. Right.
In the, I can tell you right now, not to spoil it, but in the beginning of the second book, something similar happens, and he and Baldwin are kind of, they're not. I mean, the book ends with them in a fist fight, and in the beginning of the second book, Baldwin comments to somebody. He says, "Oh yeah, this is Coleman Carmichael. He's really good at solving crimes that happen to people he already knows that he happens to witness also."
Right. So I was that's that's a dig. That's a dig. Anyway, so that's a great interpersonal dynamic there. Now I'm going to say that the art, the choice to make the colors kind of muted and matte, wasn't my preference.
Okay.
You know, for me, I felt like it muted the art a little bit too much for me. I did like the merch package, you know, the Zippo. That was a brilliant idea.
I would push back on your criticism by saying I like the colors.
Okay.
I think they feel very vintage. I think the shortcoming is that the backgrounds are not detailed enough. You know what I mean? Like, if something is detailed, I think you'd be a little bit more okay with that kind of muted color.
Right.
But when you have so much open space, it's a bit of a problem, and it's something I'm trying to I'm pushing on, you know, in the second book.
Yeah. Well, I'll agree that that would probably be make the coloring less problematic for me.
Yeah.
Definitely. The writing is very solid, but at the same time, you know, because this was like an initial book, you gotta introduce so much that I thought that it probably hurt the book overall, having to introduce everything, which you know, that's first book curse. Every book that's the first book of series is going to have that problem. But I mean, that's just the way it is. But I do give it a it is definitely a bunny recommend. You know, I have no problem recommending it to people. It's just it's a clever idea. The setting is very unique. I love the name of it, Noirlem. You know, I love that idea. Even though he's a pulp character, you know, it just fits the setting. I do like the fact that you know, him and the white officer are having to navigate this world the way it is, and it seems like the white officer has more problem with the way Carmichael's treated than Carmichael does, and I really appreciate that, because Carmichael is just like he lives his life, and he doesn't care either way, and that kind of like philosophy, we're so used to seeing black characters just be wrapped up in victimology, you know, and it's basically because they're written that way. But people back in that era, like him, would have had that attitude, like, oh, okay, you know, you're racist. Okay, well, I ran into one of them, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, I guess it's because it's so close to slavery era that they're still like used to white people being shitty, you know, and so it's like no big deal. To them, it was no big deal, and they didn't see themselves as victims, you know. They almost like appreciated the fact that they were living in the shade of white apathy. If white people started paying attention to them, which is well, what happened, you know.
In book 2, Coleman is definitely a little bit more outspoken, but it's because it's for a very specific reason. The main foil in the book is a guy. Basically, what ended up happening is the commies infiltrated Harlem.
Right. Yeah.
And so what they were doing is they were basically using their money and influence to control a lot of the artists. And Coleman is not about that. So you are going to get to see him. And he lets him know. He says, basically, he's like, he has a line in there about how, what was it? I don't know, something about how, because the communist basically strong arms him into working for him. And he's like, I could have sworn we just signed a bill saying that you're not allowed to buy me, and yet you just bought me.
Right. Well, yeah, communism.
And of course, punching out communists. There'll be that as well.
There you go. Always a good thing. But yeah, the civil rights movement was led up by communists. Most people don't understand that. Most of the leaders of the civil rights movement were communists, and they all became wealthy. But yeah, they were communist. A lot of the
Well,
philosophies they used.
the way it worked in Harlem would be an artist would have what's called a patron.
Yeah.
And the patron would pay for everything.
Right.
And then once that artist realized that they weren't in control of their life
Yeah.
and they fought back, they would find themselves dead broke. And
Right.
in some cases, in a lot of cases, they would die penniless. So Zora Neale Hurston, an unbelievable writer, she was a conservative. So AKA she was not welcome. And if you want to know what happened to her, it took an anthropologist to go down to Alabama just to find where she was buried, because nobody. That's how obscure she became.
Wow. Yeah, and you know, I used to. I'm a fan of Nikki Giovanni. You know, but Nikki Giovanni was pretty much. I think she was part of the communist movement, but you know, she was like an agitator. It's like the people that they raised up, the people that are household names, or the people we know.
Yeah,
seem to all have that political bent. But you know, yeah, but Noirlem, definitely keep an eye out for that one. It's definitely something I would recommend. But Eudamonia 3 is in sign up right now. I've got the link pinned to the chat. Let me play the trailer right quick. So here we go. Yeah, that looks like it's going to be intense. But yeah, looking forward to that. But you will be able to get the 1 and 2 reprints in the same campaign, like catch up tiers.
Yep.
Okay, because I definitely decided I wanted the print copy of both of those. I haven't read 2 yet, so I'm excited to get a hold of that. When's that launching?
I have no idea. Honestly, I'm really just kind of, I'm taking my time. I don't want to launch until the book is at least mostly done, or at least has an artist for each story, since it's going to be different artists. So I at least want to get there before I even think about launching.
Okay, understood. Yeah, but I highly suggest it. That's one thing I like about finding people who I know have a dedication to quality in the writing area. It's because anything they write, I know I can recommend to people. Like I've done Vonster so far. I did Wolfsbane comics, and you know, I did. Let's see, who was? I did James from Magnificent Bastards. You know, James Rock. And what I'm doing is I'm really suggesting people, and Shadowpunk. If Shadowpunk puts out another book, I'm gonna push that to the moon, because that book was just so damn good. But you know, if you find people like Vonster, like people like that, who you know are dedicated to the writing craft, and that are going to absolutely, the characters are going to be there, the story's going to be there, the narrative's going to be flowing, those are the people I really want to push. I am tired of art books with a nominal story that just like was put in there just to get from A to B. When we have a art form here that could be both.
Mm-hmm.
And not only could it be both, but it could be the marriage of both to the degree that it's just it just elevates it. I mean, I got books from Marvel in the mid '80s that are just the art was there, the story was there, the characters were there, it made you feel something, and that used to be the mainstream comics, and but I think that's what's next is to get this art form back on the footing that it needs to be on to continue. We have to take care of the writing because mainstream can't write. They cannot. CRT and all these philosophies that they're just encrusted with will not allow them to write good stories. They can't. It's impossible. It's like run a marathon with mills, with things tied to your feet, and see if you succeed.
Yeah, sure.
And because of that, if we're going to succeed, if we're going to like supplant, the dying apparatus that is the mainstream comic book industry, the way we're going to do that is by things like Eudamonia, okay, things like Magnificent Bastards, things like Monster MD, and Terror in the Trenches, and things like Pendragon, which Wolfsbane's about to drop, which is just, it's going to change a lot of things. But when I see these projects, when I see these people who are, and Shadowpunk, when I see people that are elevating the art form, that are taking care of both of those things and making a commitment to, early image is not aspirational. Okay. Early image is a missed opportunity. Early image is not what we should be aiming at. Early image, there's a reason why we only know Spawn. Okay? Because nobody else made characters that people, were invested in. They made like great art, and those books are gorgeous, but we don't quote them. We don't talk about our favorite storylines. We don't see fan art of these characters. Very, very rarely do we. And that's a missed opportunity because they had so much goodwill, but they were so up their own ass with the art that they thought that they could just coast on the writing. And that's what's happening now. We're making the same mistake in the indie sphere that they made in early image. And people like you who are taking care of both, elevating the art form and trying to say something, try to make something that's going to last beyond this moment. People like you are the ones that we should be pushing right now. You're the ones that should be getting 6 figures so you can do more. And yet, we're having people, some of the best writers I've ever seen, some of the best written comics I've ever seen, people are barely cracking 10K. And that's the problem. Let me go. Let's see. I got a couple chats over here. Launch right now. And thanks, man. Yep. So what do you think about that little rant I just went on?
I mean, I try to, for me personally, I'm very much tunnel visioned.
Mm-hmm.
So I simply I don't naturally pay attention to what other people are doing or the larger state of the hobby or any of that. I'm really just personally focused on the next story. And that's it. That's the only thing I'm very much like kind of singular mindset. Right. I'm not saying any of what you just said is wrong. Mm-hmm. But in context of my own work, I'm only thinking about a story.
There you go. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. I basically, the reason why I'm concerned with it is because I want to try to build an environment where people like you can just concentrate on doing the best work possible, and there'll be a market for it.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way that happens is if people start pointing out that the emperor has no clothes. Okay,
Right.
that dude is not in shape, and he's buck ass naked. Okay, and so the only way that we stop, you know, just obsessing about over people who are not elevating the art form, or not making the kind of product that we need to keep this industry alive, is if somebody is like pointing out that, okay, yeah, they made this money, but is that book going to be something I reread tomorrow? I reread you. I mean, when I first read Eudamonia, when you first sent it to me, I didn't get it, but it was beautiful enough that I kept trying, and then I just like finally looked at it again today, and I finally like heard the music, after all these times of trying to get into it, and suddenly it was accessible to me today. And that's because you didn't like insult my intelligence. You didn't like try to make things like pablum, as something as on the bottom shelf that which there's room for that. Not saying there's not room for that, but I'm just saying that if you can spend a little extra time and maybe add a subplot, maybe flesh out a character a little bit more, or maybe spend more time on a panel, how it looks and the coloring of it, the color. One thing, like Shadowpunk in his comic book, he has two, like a shade of blue and a shade of red, that he's like put all throughout the book very deliberately when he did his coloring. He kept those, he like seeded that all throughout the book. And so when you get the book, it feels uniform, but that's because somebody spent time thinking about minutia, spent time, thinking about, like in your case, everything's an iambic pentameter, everything's a sonnet. That is the kind of exacting obsession, I guess you would say, that is going to save the art form, especially Western comics. And I salute you, and I'm going to promote people like you and whatever project you put out.
Well, I appreciate it, and I think to kind of speak to what your point, what you were talking about before. I think for me, when I'm reading a lot of my peers in indie comics, I would say the one thing that absolutely drives me insane is when people, because you were talking about how I don't insult your intelligence,
right?
And the secret to that is to try and ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, you didn't get everything the first time around,
right?
And I don't think anybody should get anything the first time they read something. You know what I mean? And a lot of the things that drive me crazy are when I see writing that is basically people are drawing a page and then the dialogue is explaining what's happening on the page.
Right.
And
exactly.
and there's literally nothing unexplained, unexplored.
Yeah.
Nothing is asking them any questions beyond, just this is what happened, and then this is what happened, and this is what this person said.
Right.
And for me, good writing is the kind of thing that asks the reader to think about what's happening and what's being said.
Right.
And the joy is in not knowing. It's not in knowing. It's in not knowing.
Yeah. Well, if everything's spelled out for you, then you there's no reason for you to revisit.
Yeah.
I said it today, maybe yesterday or today, but I said somebody's talking about they hate it when somebody like explains the world too much, and I was like, well, it's like the difference between a guided tour and being handed a map and sent out, and said, find your own way, look at what you want to look at, enjoy the environment, building an environment where people can dwell, can look around and discover things for themselves, as opposed to, okay, stay within these ropes. I'm going to take you everywhere. I'm going to tell you everything. And I'm going to, this is what you should take from this, and the reason why the Marvel Universe at one point, the 616 was such a place for people to hang out, was because you'd go to these comics and they were basically anomaly in this universe, but you could like explore Hell's Kitchen, and see Daredevil flying overhead, or you could go downtown and see Spider-Man swinging by on a web or something like that. And it's like, they had characters on the street. They had ordinary people that were involved. Like Marvels changed my life. Have you ever seen the Marvels?
Mm-hmm.
Alex Ross, is right. And, that realistic art was one thing, but the way it was written was just written from ordinary people looking up and seeing Ant-Man's or the Giant Man step over, or Captain America jumping by. And it's like living in this world. And I think ultimately, if you can build that for people, that experience, not a narrative, but experience, basically, and people will keep returning to your world as much as everything you put out, people are going to want to read it. Hybrids is a book series that Luke Stone does.
Yeah.
And those people feel like my friends. And so every time a Hybrids product comes out, I'm clicking, I'm clicking on it. And I was looking the other day and I had every single product that the Hybrids put out. Why? Because I care about those characters. I care about that world. And I like living there. I like visiting. And so, there's books I've got right here that made over six figures that I won't pick up again. That I cared about nobody in it.
Right.
I'm ambivalent about that world because it wasn't built for me. It was like detailed to me. And so there's no explanation necessary because somebody didn't sit there and do the narrative depth necessary for me to want to visit more than once. And I think it's an opportunity. Every book is going to be an opportunity to build, I call it an on-ramp. Build an on-ramp for your world.
Right.
And that way people can like next stop your world, and people take that on-ramp and they can go to your world and hang out and live there. And anything that you make in that world is going to be something that people are going to want to consume. And so that's an opportunity. Your Eudamonia world. I want to hang out there. I want to read your sonnets and I want to meet these characters, and your Noirlem, Mr. Carmichael, the very next time he has an adventure drop, I'm going to be there because I like Mr. Carmichael,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I appreciate it.
And so now your How to Die world, I can't really say I didn't warm to it.
Yeah, I didn't either. That's why it's gone.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
like I didn't walk away from it because other people didn't like it. I walked away from it because I didn't like it.
There you go. I know there's a market for it. I know there's a market for that kind of.
It's not me. That's not me.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm allergic to nihilism. I kind of like rash, So anyway, if anything's, even if it's not entirely nihilistic, anything that smacks of that, I usually avoid. So, but it is what it is. That's personal preference. I have enough nihilism in my world that I'm not interested in visiting it voluntarily.
Yeah, sure.
But that's not. Like I said, Eudamonia, as soon as you drop that, I'm definitely going to back that and get the other 2 books. I want hard copies of those. I got the digital. And Noirlem, I'm definitely going to back that. And I highly suggest everybody sign up for that Eudamonia 3 campaign. The link is in the chat, so go ahead and do that. And y'all have a very happy 4th of July. I'll let Mr. Raiden Radio go. I'm sure he's a busy man. And thank you for stopping by the rabbit hole, my friend.
Thank you. And if you haven't, come check out The Gutter, the show I do with Aldous every Friday night. We do this really weird thing where we talk about comic books.
Yeah, actual talk about comics.
Yeah.
Not drama.
No, we talk about comics that we like or comics that are awful, and we roast them.
Yeah, you don't talk about anybody's mother or anybody's
No
grooming habits?
No, just horrible books like Void Indigo and great books like Seven to Eternity.
There you go. There you go. There you go. If you actually want to hear people talk about comics, that's on. Is that on Jeremy's show or Jeremy's channel?
Yeah, it's still on his channel. Yeah.
Okay. All right. What's the name of that channel?
I don't even know. Oh, Jeremy Ice and Fire. Jeremy Ice and Fire.
Jeremy Ice and Fire. Okay, he's changed the name of that thing so many times.
Yeah, I know.
have no idea. I think he lost me about 2 name changes back.
Yeah.
Anyway, so check that out. It's Aldous and Raiden Radio. It's on Friday nights around 11 Eastern.
Yep.
Like that. Okay, about 11 Eastern on Jeremy Ice and Fire channel, also known as the Crack Packs channel.
Yeah.
So if you know any Crack Pack members, say, hey, where's Jeremy's channel? And they'll take you right there. But anyway, so one more comment before we go. Happy America Day. Yeah, happy America Day, everybody. And we'll see you next time here on The Rabbit Hole. Remember, follow the white rabbit, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.